Imagine you are walking through a dense, humid jungle. But this isn't the Amazon you know today. The air is so hot it feels heavy in your lungs. The river water is murky, concealing predators that make modern crocodiles look like house pets. You are an early human, or perhaps a time traveler, stepping onto the muddy bank to take a drink. You scan the water. You see nothing. No ripples, no movement, just a massive dark log submerged near the shore. But then, the log blinks. Before your brain can even process the danger, the water explodes. You aren't just looking at a snake, you are looking at a living freight train. Welcome back to Primeval Life. Today, we're answering the ultimate terrifying question. We know the Titanoboa was the largest snake to ever crawl the earth, but was it actually big enough to swallow a human being whole? The answer is more horrifying than you think. Let's dive in. To understand if this monster could eat us, we first have to understand what it actually was. For years, paleontologists thought they knew the limits of how big a snake could grow. They thought physics had a stopping point. But in the coal mines of Cerrejón, Colombia, they found something that broke all the rules. They found a vertebra, a single backbone. But this bone wasn't normal. It was colossal. Based on the fossils, scientists reconstructed a creature that defies belief. Titanoboa cerrejonensis. Let's put this in perspective. The largest reticulated python found today measures about 25 feet max. The green anaconda, the heaviest snake alive, tops out around 500 pounds. Titanoboa, it was up to 50 feet long. That is longer than a standard school bus. But the length isn't the scary part, it's the weight. This animal weighed 2,500 pounds. That is more than a fully grown bison, packed into the shape of a serpent. If this snake slithered past you in a hallway, its body would be as high as your waist. It was a moving wall of muscle. But being big is one thing. Being a man-eater is something else entirely. Here is the twist that most people get wrong about snakes. You often hear that snakes unhinge their jaws to eat. That is actually a myth. They don't unhinge anything. Their jaws are connected by incredibly stretchy ligaments, allowing their mouths to open incredibly wide. However, even giant snakes today have limits. There are stories of anacondas or pythons eating humans, but these are incredibly rare. Why? Because humans are actually a terrible shape for swallowing. We have something called broad shoulders. A snake can easily swallow a deer or a pig because those animals are streamlined. But a human, our wide shoulders act like a brake. For a modern giant snake, getting past the shoulders of an adult man is nearly impossible. It usually gives up or risks splitting its own side open. So the question is, would Titanoboa have the same problem? To find out, we have to look at the skull. The skull of a Titanoboa was almost double the size of the largest anaconda skull ever recorded. When an anaconda opens its mouth, the gape is roughly the size of a large dinner plate. Scary, but survivable. When Titanoboa opened its mouth, the gape was wide enough to fit a prehistoric crocodile. Let's run the numbers. At its thickest point, Titanoboa was about 3 feet wide. That is 1 meter of pure girth. An average human male has a shoulder width of about 18 to 20 inches. Do you see where this is going? Titanoboa wouldn't even need to stretch its jaw to its limit. If you were standing in front of a Titanoboa, you wouldn't be a challenge for it to swallow. You wouldn't be a meal that gets stuck at the shoulders. To a Titanoboa, a human being would be the equivalent of a chicken nugget. It could slide over your shoulders, your chest, and your legs with terrifying ease. In fact, it might not even stop with you. It was large enough that it could theoretically swallow 2 or 3 human beings in a row without needing to rest. But before you get eaten, you have to get caught. And this is where the story gets darker. Let's go back to that swamp. Titanoboa lived in the Paleocene epoch, about 60 million years ago. This was just after the dinosaurs died out. The world was incredibly hot. This heat is what allowed the snake to grow so big. Cold-blooded animals get massive in high temperatures. Because it was so heavy, Titanoboa likely spent most of its life in the water. So, here is the scenario. You're swimming, or perhaps wading through the reeds. Titanoboa didn't hunt with venom. It didn't need it. It was a constrictor. The attack would happen in less than a second. First, the strike. Rows of recurved teeth, teeth that curved backward like fishhooks, would slam into your torso. These teeth aren't designed to slice. They're designed to grip. Once they hook in, you cannot pull away. The harder you pull, the deeper they sink. Then comes the coil. Within seconds, 2,000 pounds of muscle wraps around you. For a long time, we thought constrictors killed by suffocation, literally squeezing the air out of your lungs. But recent science suggests something much faster and much worse. The pressure is so intense that it shuts off your blood flow immediately. It causes cardiac arrest. Your heart simply doesn't have the strength to pump against the squeeze of the snake. You wouldn't gasp for air for minutes. You would black out in seconds. The lights would go out before it even started to swallow. Now, I know what you're thinking. Thank goodness I don't live in the Paleocene. And you're right. There's one lucky detail in this nightmare scenario. Titanoboa and humans never actually met. Titanoboa went extinct about 58 million years ago. The earliest human ancestors didn't show up until millions of years later. But that doesn't mean our ancestors were safe from giant snakes. While they didn't face the Titanoboa, early humans in Africa and Asia had to deal with gigantophis. This was a 33-foot snake, smaller than Titanoboa, but still plenty big enough to be a threat to early primates. The fear of snakes is built into our DNA. Evolutionary psychologists believe that the reason humans are so good at spotting snakes in the grass is because for millions of years, they were our primary predators. Titanoboa is the ultimate manifestation of that primal fear. It represents the absolute limit of nature, the moment when the earth was so hot and life was so wild that a snake could become the king of the jungle. So, to answer the question, could Titanoboa swallow an early human? Yes, without a doubt. It wouldn't just swallow you, it would barely notice you went down. It's a good thing the climate cooled down, because if the world ever gets that hot again, the snakes might just start growing, and next time we might be on the menu. What do you think is the scariest prehistoric predator? Was it the Titanoboa or something else? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into the jaws of the beast, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss our next episode, where we uncover the monsters that time forgot. This has been Primeval Life.